What's poppin', y'all? Welcome back to I Do It Myself. I am Wayno. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you like what it is that I do, hit that sub button and run them likes up today. We talking about Nas verse on Chandeliers. Yes, we still talking about like God sort them out. It's only been a week, but you know when albums come out, it seems like the lifespan is very, very short. To me, this album just keeps getting better and better every time I listen to it. But I wanted to talk about Nas's verse. Nas got a lot of great, amazing guest verses. One of my favorite ones is It's Mine with Mobb Deep. Another one, I really one day, I'm going to figure out how to do it. I want to get it like gold plated. Of course, I'm not going to have it in 24 karat gold, but I want to get Nas's verse for verbal intercourse, gold plated. Like I want it to be like a gold tablet with Nas's verse on it. Reason why is because Nas has always had a way of being prophetic. He's always had a way of saying things that meant more than what you actually was able to see at that exact moment. And I think that the verse for Chandeliers is that. I think that Nas's verse on Chandeliers, while it's a little short, it does represent a timeline of things in a very short span. He talks about what it means to him, like what things mean to him today. And I think that what's lacking a lot in hip hop is the perspective of the elders of where they're at currently, not where they were. A lot of artists, even the older ones, they can give you the same 16, just a newer version of today. But it's very rare that you get artists that can paint a picture, that can absolutely paint a picture of today, and you can see where they came from till now. So I want to go through it, right? Single-handedly boosted rap to its truest place, right? Illmatic. Illmatic as an album has been critically acclaimed like the album that defines hip-hop by many. Not by everybody. Music is subjective, so you get people from different regions. For a lot of people, Illmatic might not mean nothing to them. But I had this thing to say when I was doing Lou Williams' podcast, him and Spank's podcast, and I say, yo, for everybody that's in this room, because it was the conversation about like, the gym thing. They wanted to bring that up to me. And I said, for everybody that's in this room, I said, you see her over there, him over there, none of them may not listen to Nas, right? But somebody in their family, Nas is their favorite rapper. And I was like, that's the perspective of how much respect he's built, not only in New York, because I think it's very short-sighted to look at Nas as a New York thing. You know what I mean? Nas is a hip-hop thing. He's an international thing. He's something that represents hip-hop in its truest form, from storytelling. He may not got all the same party records. He don't make everybody shake their ass, but the respect that's there for Nas has always been there and is going to continue to be, right? Then he says, F speaking candidly, I alone did rejuvenate, right? So when I heard that, when he said, F speaking candidly, like, yeah, pop your shit, right? Like, don't be shy about it, Nas, pop your shit. But him alone, right? Him alone did rejuvenate. Like, when Big and Pac, passed, and keep in mind that, like, as legendary as people look at Tupac as, he was on Nas Hills. This little nigga named Nas think he live like me. Talk about he left the hospital, took 5 like me. You live in fantasies. I reject your deposit. We shook Dre Punk. Now he out of the closet. Like, right? So I viewed it as this. Like, for somebody like Pac to have had time to, because they spoke in person, all of that, had their own, rivalry, whatever the case may be. He viewed him as a threat. That's why he dissed him, right? But let's keep it going, right? You know what I mean? He said, I alone did rejuvenate hip-hop into its truest place, made it cool for Grammy-nominated LPs from previous generation MCs, and that rings loud and reverberates. You know what I'm saying? So the Grammys, it's always been like this. The Grammys has always been this love-hate relationship, because I think from hip-hop, we look at the Grammys as a music, right? Just overall music thing. But hip-hop is the most influential genre of music, right? When you talk about how people market themselves, what people put in movies, this is all you always got to sprinkle a little bit of hip hop in everything. It's not the other way around with everybody else. Everybody wants to have either a seat at the table or some sort of connection to hip hop in their own way. And Me personally, I felt like when King's Disease won the Grammy, that it was almost, I wouldn't say it was sympathy, because I can agree that King's Disease was something that we just had never gotten from Nas. And I think that we respected it so much because of how good in the time that him and Hit Boy put into that album. But it just seemed like, all right, now y'all know that y'all have to shift the conversation, because for Nas to be, now I think at the time he was either approaching his 50s or had turned 50, for him to be caring so much about music, the conversation had to shift as to how these awards were distributed. And let's keep it 1,000. It always been a conversation of that. Macklemore himself felt that Kendrick should have won for Good Kid, Mad City, right? But you have mainstream and you have pop and all of these other influences, and we can't negate the effect that pop music has on the world and other cultures, but talk about hip hop and where it comes and where it derives from and how big it gets based on the story, right? So let's keep it moving. He says, it's not fair to them. I'm thinking I deserve the hate, right? Bring it. The only thing you killing is precious time. Used to clash with Decepticons. I was dumb, deaf, and blind. So when I heard that, it took me back, because I remember being a kid, right? I remember going to like my oldest sister's like 6th grade graduation, and we went out to eat. And I remember, when my sister graduated from the 6th grade, I think it was either in the late 80s or early 90s. And I remember her saying something about Decepticons, and I was like, I want to see Decepticons. And she was like, nah, you don't want to see these Decepticons. And it was a gang. The Decepticons was a New York gang. So, you know what I mean? He's just alluding to what he's going through, right? Then he goes, so cancel me before I unleash the Panther me. The Pantheon is family. We some upstanding G's, right? So, again, Nas has always had a knack for being prophetic, from his artwork, from all his albums, being him showing being a baby, having his face on Queensbridge Projects, being a young man, having his face on Queensbridge Projects. On I Am, the same thing, and Nostradamus, the same thing. He kept that theme going for a few albums, you know what I mean, and then changed it. I think at Stillmatic is when he finally changed it. But it just shows the growth and the elevation of him. It says the difference between regular spitters and bosses, my principles high. You need a glimpse of me from satellites in orbit, right? He says tape sabbaticals on avenues, bring AKs on vacays when we paddle canoes. Now it's getting to the point of, and this is what reminded me of Isman, right? This is what reminded me of Isman and his verse on Isman, because he starts it out, silk shirts on my chest show, what a flirt. Holly Berry blew a kiss at the Barbra Streisand concert. So it's just Nas talking fly shit. It's like he never lost that knack. He never lost that knack for, no matter what he's talking about, you're going to get some fly elevation, some fly talk from him. And my time being around Nas, because I got a lot of time around Nas. A whole lot of time around Nas. I know a lot of y'all think that I smoke, right? A lot of y'all think that I smoke, but I don't. But I'll tell y'all this story right quick. I was in Miami. This is when I was managing Dave East, and we was out there with Nas. Like, one thing about him is that when we first started working with him, as we got hot, he was always welcoming to us being around him, no matter where he was at. Whether it was, the premiere for the Illmatic documentary, whether it was him doing anything, you know what I'm saying? He didn't mind us being around, because we was in a bad look. But I remember when we in Miami one time and we chilling and we in his room and he smoking, and he ain't know I don't smoke, but he passed me the blunt, and I said to myself, nah, I'm smoking with Nas. I was smoking, because it was like, I'm not missing out on the opportunity to be able to say I smoked with Nas before. But like I said, man, that just goes back to all the inspiration and stuff I seen him do over the years, and just me looking at a moment, right? But then he goes into, paddle canoes, then he says, Father Lolita, Terminator, Hasta la Vista, Man of the Year, Nasir rocking chandeliers. And I was like, damn, Terminator. Now, when we go back into Nas's catalog, or let's go into the diss record specifically, right? You can see different moments where he's aired people. you can go back to the point where he was going at Cam, right? And then the stuff with him and Jim started early on. Even when he was putting out, I think it was Hip Hop is Dead, a Street's Disciple, and he was being asked questions about, Jim Jones and all of that. But Terminator, like let's put that into perspective for a second. Ether, that was termination. And this is coming from somebody who's a Rockefeller alumni. You know what I mean? Like I spent time and worked at Rockefeller in what people would consider the golden years. But Ether was, and then Last Real Nigga Alive is another one. You know what I'm saying? So that's what it took me back to, that he is just reminding people of what he is and what he represents, and don't get that twisted. And then he says, hasta la vista, like peace out. You know what I mean? And then Terminator, hasta la vista, baby, the whole shit. I mean, if you young, you might not know that, or it might not mean nothing to you. And then Man of the Year, Nasir rocking Chandeliers, right? And Man of the Year, I mean, in Nas's career, he's always been compared to Jay, because that was like the biggest rivalry. After Big and Pac died, right, it was, Jay started Who's the Best MCs, Biggie, Jay-Z, and Nas. He started it on the Where I'm From song. It never was called the Big Three, but if we look back at that time, we look at that. And then Jay went on to say, only dudes moving units, M Pimp, Juice, and us. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that was ever looked at as a Big Three ever, but Jay was the one calling these things out. Now, when Nas, we think about him in comparison to Jay-Z, people talk business. Oh, Jay was the one that did da and Jay. And don't get me wrong, I was in the studio. I kid you not. I was in the studio one day with young Chris. Jay came in the studio and he told us about the New Jersey Nets moving to Brooklyn, right? We was in Baseline. And he said something about the New Jersey Nets moving to Brooklyn. And it was like, I don't even think I could fully grasp it at that time. I was really young. I think might have been 20 or 21 years old. He said it was going to happen in years. But those moves, and then, Ace of Spade and 40-40 clubs and all of that. And I think that, like, in Nas's career, it's been looked at as, well, here's the guy who might have not had the same level of hits, right? But he doesn't have the business. And then in the latter years of his career is when he started getting, like, his business moves together. And I think that's what the Man of the Year thing, like, represents when he says that bar. And then rocking Chandeliers, I mean, Nas has never been shy about rocking ice. You know what I mean? He always had chains. The QB chain is legendary with the big, you know what I mean? The QB pendant piece with the with the Queensbridge on it and all that. And what I love about this record, and not to negate anything that what Pusha and Malice did on Let God Sort Them Out on the beginning part, is I love the fact that it's cool to get older in hip hop. It's cool to get older in rap and embrace that. It's cool for you to be able to tell your story the way you want it to be told. It's cool for Nas to be able to show his growth and elevation with his business moves, but still being able to do something like this. I think that, like, hip hop isn't a young man's game. You're going to be the hottest if you really on it like that when you're young. But when you get older, what do you have to actually look forward to? Life goes on, right? And as life goes on, I think that sales are almost equivalent to being able to have them same moves. Can you still throw a right hook or a left hook the way you used to? Might not be as ferocious as it was in the beginning, right? But when you're able to make a verse to myself, for a fan like myself that's reminiscent of the Nas that I grew up on, the Nas that, like, I grew to appreciate as a lyricist, as a storyteller, looked at as a poet alongside of being, that great rapper, lyricist, whatever box you want to put him in lyrically. Well, not box, but whatever categories you would like to put him in lyrically. It makes me appreciate how important this shit is. And that's why I feel like, this album, Let God Sort Them Out, is important. This clever lines. I seen my brother Rob Markman do the thing about the Jim Jones stuff that he missed with Pusha did, and I missed it too. Shouts out to some of the people in the comments that shouted that out, like, yo, Wayno, how you missed that? I mean, listen, I was caught up in the moment and I really didn't get a chance to break it down to that level, but that's what makes it beautiful. That's what makes it dope. When I was younger, the people that I looked up to, as far as what I read, I had to buy a magazine, in order to get their words and their thoughts. And I got a community of people that I built online, the ones that's watching, that get the opportunity to hear what it is that I got to say and how much I love this shit. And y'all get the opportunity to carry that on. That's beauty and that's beautiful. I think that, like, you know, we in this time, in this place where everybody's saying, oh, music is weird and music is this and the record labels is this and the record labels is that. No, we in the best time. I'm going to tell you why we in the best time, because we in the time of adaptation. We in a time of adjustment. And we in a time of like figuring new things out. And I think that at every cusp, at the beginning of every great or golden moment that we've had, it was always about figuring it out. It was always about what's the new and next thing. Now, yeah, it gets a little bit, the waters get a little bit murky or funny because, you know, we in the content era and people are just doing anything in order to be seen or heard, but that doesn't negate the ones who put in the real work that actually care about this culture. You know what I'm saying? For real, for real. It's not so much about the disses. It's not so much about the antics. It's about the lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? I remember the first time I ever seen Run DMC on Video Music Box. Yes, I'm that old. I remember the first time I ever seen Rap City with Joe Claire or Big Les. Before Big Tigger, I remember Hits from the Street. You know what I mean? I remember all of these different things that made me fall in love with hip hop. Yo MTV Raps. You know what I'm saying? Seeing Fab Five Freddy up there, Ed Lover and Dr. Dre. When they went from, you know, being host on an MTV music show to making a movie called Who's the Man, where they had almost every up and coming artist in that movie. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the shit that I love, and I'm just telling y'all, like, verses like this make me happy for where it's going. Now it's gonna be younger ones, and I personally feel like, do the younger ones have to do that? They can't. You know what I'm saying? Everybody can't do that, but they're gonna do it in their own way. And instead of us trying to hold them down and tell them everything they not, let's try to educate them and uplift them as much as we can based on the information and the knowledge that we done got over the years. You feel me? Like, the only way we keep this alive is if we keep it going. This is I Do It Myself. For the ones that rock with me, know how we doing. For the ones that don't, eventually will. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.